Let me tell you, his fans, bro, his fans like him because he's white. They don't fuck with us. Let me try to make fuck Eminem. I dusted Eminem. Rap Elvis, bitch. Yeah.
Okay. Look at Eminem's life. Eminem's been sheltered his whole life with security. So Eminem probably got mad anxiety. He probably can't be by himself and walk through a mall. You can catch me at the most craziest gas station in any hood in America. He'd be like, that you, Zeno? Somebody, yo, let me get that picture. Yeah.
I ate his up. I cooked him. Now, you know what I'm saying? Back in the day, he cooked me. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. But what you stands is not gonna do it. What you saltines ain't gonna do is try to come here and be like, I didn't affect him. Stop it. Because that shows that y'all ain't real hip-hop fans.
There are clashes in the music industry that last a few months, maybe a few years at most, and then fade into oblivion. But rarely is there a feud that drags on and haunts one man the way Benzino keeps repeating Eminem's name in every rap verse, every interview, every mumble on social media. For more than 2 decades, this is no longer just a beef, this is something nameless. A one-sided spiritual bond between two individuals where one never speaks, and the other speaks for both. That person, of course, is Benzino. The problem is this: Eminem never saw it as a battle. To him, it was a chapter that had already been written, closed as far back as 2003, but Benzino never turned the page. He's still standing there, in the past, shouting diss lines as if tomorrow the sequel to 8 Mile is about to be filmed. The story wasn't complicated at first. Back then, Benzino was a powerful figure in hip-hop media as the co-founder of the Source magazine, and he had personal conflicts that led him to publicly criticize Eminem. In response, Eminem dropped a few diss tracks, the sharpest being Nail in the Coffin, one of the most ruthless disses of that era. But after that, Eminem went silent. He didn't mention Benzino again, didn't get dragged into it, didn't waste another beat on the man who once tried to pull him off his throne. Meanwhile, Benzino kept going, not continuing to rap, but continuing to live in the shadow of a loss he never admitted. Naturally, every mention of Eminem by Benzino stopped being about resistance or even about self-assertion and slowly turned into a symbol of refusing to accept reality, an unspoken obsession, a long, endless ballad about not letting go. They say history is written by the winners, but in this case, history was written by someone who had already won long ago, and read old, obsessively, by the one who lost. Eminem is not just a rapper. He is a phenomenon, and like every phenomenon that has ever passed through pop culture, he understands an immutable rule: the most powerful words are the ones spoken once, at the right moment, and never repeated. When the conflict with Benzino broke out in the early 2000s, Eminem didn't jump into a drawn-out battle. He didn't drag out the tension, didn't rant on stage every week, didn't sit for endless interviews acting like the world needed to understand his bitterness. He just dropped a few disses, short, sharp, precise, and brutal like a punch to the face. Then he stepped back. Nail in the Coffin. The title said it all. A diss that didn't need to scream, didn't need to justify, only needed to be sharp enough to slam the coffin shut. And then Eminem went back to doing what he did best, topping the charts, releasing 8 Mile, winning an Oscar, and reshaping the entire 2000s era of American rap. All of this while Benzino was still screaming into the mic about being misunderstood. Here, Eminem didn't just win with rap technique, he won with control of emotions, control of messaging, and most importantly, control of silence. He knew that silence, placed correctly, is the loudest echo. It disorients the opponent. It makes the public question things. And even more importantly, it stretches out that feeling of being left behind. Silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. Silence means you've already said enough. And after firmly planting his stance, Eminem left Benzino alone, with the past, with the microphone, with freestyles no one heard except himself. That silence was the real cruelty, because it denied Benzino the one thing he craved most: existence. No reply, no debate, not even a repeated name. Eminem erased Benzino from the map simply by never mentioning him again. And that is true artistry, not the art of winning, but the art of transcendence. There's one undeniable truth: every time Benzino pops up online and says something about Eminem, you can bet 50 Cent will show up, not to mediate, not to seriously analyze, but just to laugh in his face. Somehow, 50 always turns the whole feud into a Twitter-style comedy skit, where whoever laughs first wins. This time was no different. Benzino dropped a new freestyle in which he, as always, bragged, complained, and recycled his grudges. No one remembers the content. What they remember is this: 50 Cent reposted the clip on his personal account with a short caption, "This the worst thing I heard all year. He's 60 years old. Bro." That was enough. No diss track, no deep analysis, no trip down memory lane. Just one perfectly timed jab, dripping with Curtis Jackson sarcasm. And Benzino immediately reacted like he had been stabbed in the back, of course. Benzino didn't back down. He instantly fired back by dragging 50's mom into it, throwing shade at his ties to Diddy, and then challenging him to a fight. Yes, you read that right, a celebrity boxing match. Benzino challenged 50 Cent to 3 rounds to make a few $1 million.
Posting it right, and I'm like, this nigga really, he really fuck with Zeno, huh? I mean, what you should be doing, Kirk, is explaining to little Bruce Leroy while Sleeves and Diddy and a bunch of niggas was slutting her out. I think you're gonna have to owe him an explanation when he gets older. Don't act like we ain't see you on the beach with your Bugs Bunny plate with the camera taking pictures, yeah. You was in your feelings, huh? Nah, Curtis, it's not a good look. But I tell you what, though. The boxing challenge still there, Curtis, for the celebrity. I'm down to make a couple of M's. I'll go 3 rounds with your goofy ass. That's number 1.
And in that moment, what had been an artistic argument, albeit a self-proclaimed one, collapsed into a plot line for an episode of Love and Hip Hop, Retirement Edition. Because the funny thing isn't in the challenge itself. It's in Benzino thinking this was the way to redeem his image. But all the audience saw was this: a man with nothing left to lose, desperately clinging to whatever spotlight remains, even if the only thing he can swing is an imaginary uppercut. Meanwhile, 50 Cent remained in his zone. See something funny, share it so everyone laughs. He wasn't a rapper at that point, but the official narrator of Benzino's life story. Except he told it through memes, and you know what the most painful part is? Every time Benzino responds, he proves 50's point even more. Every clap back makes the crowd laugh louder, and with every passing second, Eminem remains silent. Still the only one who doesn't spend a single word to push Benzino deeper into the swamp he created for himself. When an artist no longer creates anything new, they face 2 choices. One is to stay silent and let their career quietly retreat into the background, like a beautiful film that has finished screening. The other is to keep struggling, clinging to old echoes as if the applause from the audience years ago were still ringing in their ears. Benzino clearly chose the second option, and not only did he cling, but he screamed, rewound, remixed, and freestyle rapped on top of it just to be sure. The sad part isn't that Benzino lost the beef. Everyone already knew that long ago. The real pain lies in the fact that it's the only thing people remember about him, for a man who once had in his hands the most powerful rap magazine, The Source. The only thing left in the public's eyes is the guy who got dissed by Eminem. That, truly, is a tragedy, and that tragedy only deepens because he refuses to let go. He refuses to step out of the side role and become just a normal man who could still be respected for his dignity rather than his publicly mocked past. Every time Benzino appears with another complaint about Eminem, the public doesn't feel sympathy. They laugh, not laughing with him, but laughing at him.
Look at Eminem's life. Eminem's been sheltered his whole life with security. So Eminem probably got mad anxiety. He probably can't be by himself and walk through a mall. Of course, I'm sure he would get mobbed, but just feeling safe. Like his whole life he's been
This is in Boston or something like that. How did everybody feel about that?
Nobody paid attention to that.
Right.
Eminem did not grow up gangster, and Eminem knows that.
Meanwhile, Eminem continues living the life of a legend, quiet, low profile, but every time he appears, it makes an impact. He doesn't need to say anything to Benzino, doesn't need to respond, doesn't even need a subtle jab. That very silence is the ultimate finishing move. A denial so complete that the opponent doesn't even know where to strike anymore. On the other side, the more Benzino speaks, the more his loneliness shows, a 60-year-old man using a microphone as a life raft in the ocean of his memories. But that mic is no longer plugged into any sound system. It only echoes back in an empty room called the moment he used to be famous. In the end, maybe the lesson lies here. Silence can be an answer. But going on and on about something old that no one wants to hear anymore isn't dialogue. It's monologue. And monologues are meant for theater stages, not the stage of art Benzino was once a name with. Wait. Now, he is only a shadow, and not even his own shadow, but the shadow of the man who once defeated him. There's a strange contrast between these two men who once stepped into the same battlefield. With a Mick, one spent 20 years retelling the same story. The other only needed the songs to frame the whole thing and then walked away as if he'd never even been there. That difference doesn't lie in age, or achievements, or even skill. It lies in position. Benzino is forever the one who wants to be heard. Eminem, on the other hand, is the one who doesn't need to say more, because history has already written his name down, and we, the audience sitting after the chaos has long past, keep hearing the same lament repeated by a man who once had everything, but didn't know when to stop. And like every play that drags on too long, the ending doesn't come from the script. It comes from the boredom of the audience. In some alternate dimension. Maybe Benzino still believes he's fighting for the truth, but in reality, what people see is an artist who rewrote his own life into a parody, where the main character is the victim of his own obsession. And if this story gave you anything at all, whether it's laughter, reflection, or simply a reason not to end up like Uncle Zano, then leave a comment or don't say anything at all. Because sometimes, silence really is the strongest response, more than any diss track. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you've just completed an emotional journey longer than Benzino's solo career. After The Source, and if you're still debating whether to hit like or not, just think of it this way. One simple click is basically the reply Benzino has been waiting for over the past 2 decades. Hit like to support Eminem's masterful silence. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one-sided beef in pop culture history. And drop a comment, just one line. Uncle Zano, enough already. Simple, short, effective, exactly the way Eminem does it. Thank you for sticking with this video until the end. See you in the next stories, where once famous people try every trick to keep the audience from forgetting them. And we are still here, analyzing while chuckling softly.